Hi guys, and welcome to today's SEMrush webinar. It's the first in the series of the SEMrush Toolbox, where we'll be talking through the different tools. SEMrush webinar. It's the first in the series of the. Sorry, I'm getting feedback there. So it's the first in the series of all the tools that SEMrush have got. There's tons of them, and a lot of people are not aware of them. So we will be going through all of the tools over the course of the next few months. But today I am joined by Kevin in Dig, who many of you I'm sure have heard of. So Kevin, for anyone who's not aware of who you are, can you give them just a little bit of information about yourself?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me on, Craig. It's awesome doing this with you. So a bit about myself. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I run SEO here at Atlassian, at least for now. And I also mentor startups in a German accelerator in a bit broader constellation than just SEO. It's more about growth, user acquisition, retention, monetization, those kind of things.
Perfect. So you said there you're running SEO for Atlassian for now. You're obviously leaving there tomorrow. So obviously I'm not sure what your plans are for the future. Is there anything you can share with us guys who are following you? Is there anything in the pipeline, or are you just going to see how things pan out?
Yeah, so I've been in Atlassian for about 3 years. Like with most projects and with most engagements, at some point you think it's a good time to go. So I don't yet have an immediate next plan or next step, better said. I'm talking to a couple of companies, looking for to nail something down for about March. Pretty open to what the industry is and whether it's B2C, B2B. Pretty flexible about the role. I could also see myself broaden up a little bit, venturing not out of SEO completely, but maybe venturing into a much more high-level role and overseeing a couple of different things. So that's kind of the situation for me, and I'm curious to see what's coming in the next 2 months.
It's amazing what opportunities arise when you do change your kind of direction and what you're doing. So I'm sure you will have offers and opportunities or whatever. So I'll be keen to see where you end up. So are you going to be staying in San Francisco, or are you going to travel about? So you're staying over there?
Thanks. Yeah, the plan is to stay here in the Bay Area, man. I just spent a little time in Europe, and it gets really tough when you get spoiled by the Bay Area. From several directions, not only from the tech scene here and the companies, but also the weather, especially when you're from Germany or Europe. A thing or two about that, and just the living standard here and the people, the food, all that kind of stuff. So I definitely see myself here in the Bay for a couple of years.
No, I get. I've never been to San Francisco, but obviously being from Scotland, it's not too far from Germany. So I do feel your pain with with the weather, and the food's not great, and it's just I think I should have been born somewhere where there was a lot more sunshine. But each to their own. But no, it's great to hear that you still love the area. It's a place I'd love to go to and check out, and I'm sure I will one day. But yeah, America's certainly not a bad place to be. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity over there. America, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the biggest places for SEO, if you like, tech and all that kind of stuff. So UK, US, obviously the US is a much bigger scale and more people. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But for anyone watching today, this is the first in this series, but it is the last SEMrush webinar of the year. Obviously, SEMrush will be back in the new year, doing all the normal stuff, different webinars, and I'll be back with the second in the series on the 10th of January with Don Anderson. And there's loads of other webinars lined up, so you can obviously check what's coming up in the new year with SEMrush. But I think we should probably get started, Kevin. So what I'll do is I will go first and just give people an overview of the Keyword Magic Tool, what it is, what it does, and then you can show us what you use the tool for, and then we'll do some questions and answers. So guys out there, if you've got any questions you want answered by Kevin, I'll put them to him at the end of the webinar. But what I'll do is I'll just start sharing my screen just now and show the guys the keyword magic tool. So today's tool that we're going to focus on is the keyword magic tool. So I'm just going to run through all the different functions and features that the tool does. So it's nice and easy. You obviously log into your SEMrush, you scroll down to keyword analytics, open that up, and you see the keyword magic tool there. So it's got a nice big search bar, all the usual databases. I'm in the UK, so I'm going to use the UK as an example. And you stick in a keyword like used cars, for example. Search. And up crops a whole bunch of keywords. So I'll just talk you through everything that it does here. So it's got a whole bunch of keywords there. The total volume, obviously the average volume of monthly searches for all of those keywords is 2.3 million. Average difficulty is 3.89. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But this is obviously the keyword magic tool. It pulls all this data together, and it's going to show you the volume, the kind of trend, keyword difficulty, average cost per click, the competition, score, SERP features, and results in SERP. So I'll talk you through what all of those mean in a moment. But results in SERP, I'll start with that one. That's the number of URLs displayed for any given keyword. That doesn't obviously determine how competitive a keyword is. There can be 67.2 million competing pages out there for that particular search term, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the most competitive search term or whatever. It sometimes does, but it's not always the case. But SERP features is obviously the number of SERP features that appear in the search results for a given keyword. So what is a SERP feature? That can be your featured snippets and all that kind of stuff. So there's obviously 4 SERP features there: the knowledge panel, site links, reviews, and video. Some of these have more search features than others, and it just gives you a rough idea of what SERP features you can go for when going after that keyword. Competition. This is a score that is given on a scale of 0 to 1.00, with 1.00 being the most difficult to rank for. This one's 0.07. So according to that score, it's not the most outrageously competitive search term within your pay-per-click campaigns. The average cost per click is the kind of average cost per click, whether it's £1 or 89 pence or whatever it may be. You can see that there. Keyword difficulty is a score that SEMrush gives from 1 to 100, and it shows you how difficult it would be to outrank your competitors in the organic top 20 for any particular keyword. So, you can see here 75, I would imagine, as far as I'm concerned, is relatively high. 80 and all that kind of stuff is relatively, it's obviously higher, so they're going to be more difficult. And there's some others down here that should be a lot less than that, further down the page or further down onto page 2. But when it comes to used cars, it is going to be relatively competitive. It's not going to be easy to do due to the volume of used car people and all that kind of stuff. And obviously the other part we've got here is the interest of searchers over a 12-month period. Obviously the graph remains the same, so the kind of trend for this search is relatively consistent throughout the year for that search term. And volume is the average amount of monthly searches. So for anyone who didn't know that, that's what all these mean. But get on to the tool itself. Obviously, it's got 112,000 keywords here, but you can obviously filter this stuff down You know, if it's Ford cars you sell, you can click on Ford, and the keyword magic tool is going to filter everything down and just give you the keywords that relate to Ford cars. And you can see that the volume here is only 47,000, and it's got all the kind of same metrics. So you can basically scroll down this list, and you know, if you were a dealership, for example, all the keywords relating to dealership crop up. So obviously all keywords was the 112,000, but you can go down here and filter it down to the most relevant keywords to the business that you're working with. And obviously BMWs and stuff like that, they still get a lot of monthly searches in the UK, whether that's, you know, long tail keywords that you'll find further down here. You know, BMW Fife, which is a place in Scotland, only gets 70 searches, but I'm sure it's probably worth your while going after some of those search terms as well. So the keyword magic tool does also have advanced filters, which you can see here. So if you open this up, you'll see all these advanced filters. Now you can include specific keywords here, or you can exclude certain keywords there to further filter down the keyword list that the tool provides you with. You can also use filters for the average cost per click, the search volume, and various other things here. But what is quite a cool feature is you can filter it down by search features as well. So if you want to go after, you know, any particular search feature there, whether that's a feature snippet or a knowledge panel, then you can obviously use this to filter down what keywords have the knowledge panel and stuff like that there, and you can go and try and get that for yourself or your client or whoever it is you may be working with. So the filter part here is a part that anyone I speak to, they normally didn't really realize that was there. You know, they don't click on it or whatever. It's quite hard. It's not hard to find if you know what you're doing, but you can open that up and filter a lot of this kind of stuff down further. And obviously that is down to you and what you want to do there. But what is quite a cool feature as well is adding this to the keyword analyzer. So you can add certain keywords to the keyword analyzer using the keyword magic tool. So just say it's only these two keywords I'm going to use as an example. I can add that to keyword analyzer. And then I can go to keyword analyzer. And what I'm going to do is just click this update metrics first and foremost on both of those keywords. I'll just give that a minute to go through. And what I will do while that's just updating the metrics is you can send these keywords to other tools as well. So if you have, you know, you're going to set up your pay-per-click campaigns within SEMrush, you can also send these keywords to your pay-per-click keyword tool, and you can also send it to the position tracking tool, which, you know, obviously if you're going to track these positions for your clients. So within this tool, you can send it to other tools that are within SEMrush, and that's quite a cool feature there as well. But once this updates, what it's basically going to show you is the trend, keyword difficulty, competition, search features, click potential, and the top search engine results for a given keyword. So it updates those metrics. I'm not going to spend too much time waiting for that to update because it looks as if it's going fairly slowly just now, but it normally does take a few minutes to use that. So you can put that data from here over to other tools using keyword analyzer as well. So, you know, as I say, the keyword magic tool, it's great. SEMrush are known for having great keyword research. You know, it's something I've always been known for as far as, you know, my personal opinion goes. And they have updated their database to something ridiculous. Like, I'm not sure of the exact figures, so don't hold me accountable, but I think it's something like 9 billion keywords are in this database on here as well, which is the biggest around. I think, you know, there's other tools out there like Ahrefs, you know, who have 7 billion. SEMrush have got 9 billion. out there. So there's a lot of data in here, and it's just, you know, going through that and filtering out the potential keywords that you're going to use on your campaigns. And you've also got a new feature up here as well, which is related. So it's going to show you related keywords to the seed keyword that you put in the search bar. And it will show you all of this kind of stuff here, all these kind of related keywords as well. Now, you'll also see broad match, phrase match, and exact match. I'm sure many of you, if you do pay-per-click, will be familiar with what broad, phrase, and exact match means. Obviously, this will give you any variation of your seed keyword, you know, in any order. It doesn't matter, you know, if it's got used cars NI, which is short for Northern Ireland, it could be Northern Ireland used cars or whatever. It's just going to pull all of that together and give you this one bunch of, you know, the volume there. If it's phrase match, it gives you the exact keyword that you used, but they can vary the order. An exact match is only the keyword that you select. So you can, again, use that to filter things down a bit as well, because obviously if you use broad match, then you're going to get a lot more keywords. You know, you can see the volumes changing down here. It's going to show you a lot more keywords and a lot more data that might not be, you know, it's just going to be more work for you to sift through to filter out the kind of stuff you don't want to use. So I would normally use phrase match and exact match. And it's also good to have a look at related keywords, because previously in the past, what you had to do was go through your competition and check out what keywords they were ranking for. But, you know, using this tool, it does it all for you. So you can just click on related and it will give you other keyword ideas that you may have not thought about. Or, you know, even when it comes to second-hand cars for sale and stuff like that, you might have not thought about common misspellings like cars for sale, SAIL. Not that I'm not sure cars can float on water, but, you know, people are searching for it. 50 people, you know, whatever it is, a month. 10 people, sorry, it is. And that could be 10 car sales to someone, you know, a small business. So you can't be ignorant to common misspellings or the way people also spell second-hand cars. It can be done with the number and stuff like that as well. So this does it all for you, which is good. So I think the related keywords is pretty cool. And yeah, so that is pretty much the Keyword Magic tool, just a generic overview. Obviously, I don't want to take up the whole show, and it's now time to give Kevin the opportunity to show us guys what Kevin uses the tool for.
Yeah, man. Actually, I could listen to you all day, man. You have that really cool Scottish accent. I don't mind listening at all. But no, I'll share a little bit about how we use the Keyword Magic tool. But thanks for introducing us. And I've tried to be a bit busy on the YouTube comments. So thanks everyone for your questions. So let me share my screen real quick, and I'll walk you through a couple of things. So before we jump into the actual tool, I wanted to bring up one or two articles from my site real quick, just to visualize the flow or the workflow that I use the Keyword Magic tool for. So a while ago, I wrote this article, A Better Approach to Keyword Research for Content Marketing. And in it, I basically flipped the regular approach to keyword research around a little bit. And instead of starting with a reactive, list of keywords that you then expand upon or search the volume for, I suggest to start with the actual problem. And in this screenshot right here, you see what a final table with this approach could actually look like. And there are a couple of important components that we also find in the SEMrush Keyword Magic tool that I actually used to do a lot of research for this article, by the way. So the first one is topic. You want to have a general, you basically don't want to optimize for specific queries or keywords anymore as a primary focus. You much more want to look at topics and create content that cover each aspect and subtopic of this main topic. And then you have these problems. And again, if you read the article, you'll understand how to get to these problems. But one of the core aspects are the questions, actually. Obviously, Google is a search engine, and people look for questions on search engines, but we oftentimes don't do a good enough job in compiling all the important questions that are related to a topic. And this is a really big feature that I love in the SEMrush Keyword Magic tool. And then, of course, you have your queries, and then you have SERP features, right? You're probably aware that things like featured snippets or direct answers catch a lot of attention in the search results. And if you rank in them, or if you ever have ranked in a featured snippet, you know how much traffic and attention that can get you. But it's also interesting if you want to understand the user intent behind a certain query. Now, I don't want to lose myself too much in this specific topic. I actually want to show you how I use the tool to get to questions, topic, SERP features, and queries. So Craig already showed us how to use the tool, so I'll not start from the beginning screen. I'll actually start at the point after which you've added a keyword and then ran it through the search. Now, I work with a couple of startups, and one of the startups has a great product in the text savings space, and so I want to use that as an example here. So obviously, the keyword text savings has a lot of volume, but the problem space of tax savings is vast. I don't know if you ever, actually, I file taxes in Germany and in the US, so I have a little bit of a broader view than most people, but in no country is it very pleasant or very easy. And so there are lots of different problems that people deal with, also according to what life situation they're in. And we'll dive into this a little deeper in just a second. So first of all, I added the text savings keyword. I get a lot of good suggestions for keywords that are related. And this is the first thing that I want to point out. I actually use all three, or the first three features of the Keyword Magic tool, the broad match, phrase match, and exact match, all the time. And I rotate through them to get the broadest view possible of the keyword or query that I want to rank for. So broad match obviously relates to far related keywords and queries and questions to the actual keyword. Phrase match, on the other hand, makes sure to use to use both words in the phrase or in the query, but they don't have to stand right next to each other or be in the exact same order. And then exact match are all the keywords that are expanding on the exact order of words. And you probably know this from AdWords campaigns or from Keyword Planner. So it's probably no news to you. But what you might have already seen is that the results vary a little bit. And for me, it's really helpful to just look at all the three match types and see what keywords are coming up for the main query that I want to rank for. And so here's how I think about this. The exact matches are obviously all the queries that are important to rank for the topic text savings. But under broad match, I might find topics that are related to text savings, but might need their own content or their own article, right? They might be too broad to cover in a piece of content for text savings. And if you're familiar with content creation models like Hub and Spoke or the topic clusters, then we obviously deal with a pillar piece of content for tax savings, which is very broad, right? It's a high-level view, maybe an introduction. And then there are a couple of other smaller pieces of content that deal with specifics. And so for to research the high-level broad piece of content, I use the broad specifics, I use exact match. I hope that came across a little bit. And obviously here at Atlassian, we also create a lot of content. This is just one of several microsites that we have on our domain. Yeah, this would be an example for a broad piece of content. You can find it under atlassian.com/agile. And we have a whole microsite that covers specific topics of Agile, like Scrum, Kanban, product management, project management, retrospectives, and whatnot. And these I would count as the more specific pieces of content, the clusters, whereas the piece of pillar content or the hub content is this page right here, right, the introduction. So just wanted to give you a tangible example. But there is actually more that I get out of the Keyword Magic tool. And so there are two other features that I love to use. First of all, Craig already hinted at the clustering and the categorization of the keywords here on the left side. And I think this is actually really important. This is not just a visualization of nice to have things or I don't know, inspiration. You can actually use it to structure your content. And so I think both views are really important. I prefer the volume view slightly more. Obviously, the number of keyword view shows you how many keywords there are in this specific subtopic or category. But I love the volume a bit more because sometimes a single keyword has a very, very high volume and is therefore much more attractive than others, and vice versa. So what I look for in this box on the left side are categories that help me to understand the deeper search intent and situation that users have when they use, in the space of tax savings. So for example, when we expand on plan, tax savings plan, then the first thing that we see is that there are a couple of categories that are really interesting, like college or deduction or Trump, that might not be obvious at first, but when you expand another time, you'll see that actually in the bigger space of tax savings, people have questions around tax savings while being on college, for example. And they have a couple of not hyper local but somewhat local searches that indicate that tax savings are obviously different per state, right? We have California, with Maryland, with Oregon. So this is a great segue for me to deepen my research and find more subtopics that I want to address with my product or with my company. Or if you look at Trump, we see that, well, it's not that apparent, but it actually comes back to political changes that might impact tax savings, about which people have questions that become apparent by using this tool, right? So I really love how this is built, and I sometimes try to structure the content accordingly, right? So here's everything you need to know about tax saving accounts and interest, and fees and rates and all that kind of stuff. And then I have another category on my site where I talk about different tax saving plans and how they can affect you and how you can benefit them, what they mean for your retirement and so on and so on. So you delve into this whole world without even having looked a single time at the search results. And you find a lot of interesting topics that you can cover on your site, but also a lot of suggestions for structure. And I bet, at least to me, that a lot of these things are not apparent, right? Because, don't want to become too philosophical, right? But I'm in a certain life situation. I don't have a family. I'm not married. I'm not in college anymore, since 10 years. But it is hard to sometimes feel the pains and the needs of people in that specific life situation. And I love such tools that just broaden my perspective to create the most relevant content possible. And all that taken together would then drastically increase my chance to actually rank for the keyword tax savings if I haven't done so already. So these are just a couple of thoughts and best practices that I love to use. I love the SERP feature integration. Obviously here we're in the keyword analyzer tool. So I selected a couple of the queries in this list, and then I added them to the keyword analyzer. And then from here, I can group them. And I spoke about the topics before. And I could then perform another search, for example, with the keyword magic tool about something tax savings related, right? Like tax savings plans. Then I could also add this to my list here on the keyword analyzer. And then I would end up with a list of, very specific, highly relevant keywords that I can create content for them. And the last thing that I want to touch upon, and then I'm done talking, at least for the most part, are the questions. So I mentioned before that questions are not only important to answer in your content as a whole, but also explicitly. And I'm saying that because of something like this, because of featured snippets, right? So if you want to rank for a featured snippet, you have to answer. But first of all, you have to write the question down on your page explicitly, and you have to answer it within 50 to 70 words, I think is the standard right now, at least for most of the featured snippets, unless you have a list or a bulleted featured snippet. But I just wanted to bring the awareness to questions because they can be such a big traffic driver. And it's obviously really easy to find questions with the Keyword Magic tool. Lots of these are not apparent to me, and lots of these can be clustered on the same page, right? So when, for example, people look for how much will the text cut save me, or how much will I save with the new text plan, these are very similar questions that I could address on my page, and maybe even use that phrasing a couple of times and increase my likelihood to get a featured snippet. Now, there are obviously more components to featured snippets. You have to be the the first 5 results, and your site might need a certain authority. But generally, this is a great way to figure out the most important questions and create content for them. You could even, as a last sentence, drive it a bit further, and you could maybe even address these questions in email campaigns or on social media. I think SEO here is really just a starting point into a broader conversation with your audience and making use of the information you have here. So this is a little segue into, or a little introduction into how I use the tool. I could probably keep on talking for another hour, but I want to spare you that. But if you have any questions, I'm more than happy and welcome to answer them or show you how that works in the tool.
Perfect, Kevin. Great overview of how you use the tool. A lot of good detail there. So I'm sure the audience have picked up a few tips there. I'm just getting some of the questions from YouTube just now. So we'll go to some questions and answers, guys. If you've got questions, put them in the YouTube chat. We'll get Kevin's opinion or answers to those questions for the next 25 minutes or so. So the first question is from Annie Tandy. So after using the drill downs and including them in our articles, how can we then check how the article ranks or changes rank to see if it worked?
Yeah, I'm happy you asked that tool, that question, Annie. Sorry, that is actually a really good one, and I want to show really quickly how that actually works. So I'll just share my screen again for just a hot second, and then I'll be done here. But coming back to the list that I showed earlier, where I exported my keywords to the keyword analyzer, you can then select them, and there's a little button that says send to other tools. And here you can either send them to the PPC or position tracking tool. And that is what I talked about earlier, right? First of all, you can keep an eye on your organic position, but you can also use this for other channels. And this is what, again, I think is highly relevant and a bit underestimated, undervalued in this tool, is the transferability to PPC, social, email, and whatnot. So yeah, that's the feature right there. If you have any other questions, please just shoot them over about this.
Cool. There's questions coming through thick and fast. So we have another question from my Florida Coastal team. Can you explain the spreadsheet grid example where it says toothbrush, start with a problem. How do you approach this?
Yeah. Right. That was an example that I picked specifically for the article. And again, if you want to, I hope it's okay if I post a link in the YouTube section, but there you can read everything in depth if you want to go back to it. But the basic idea, again, is to start. So the toothbrush example was just something to make it more tangible and simple to relate to. But what I was trying to get to in the article is that when you start keyword research and topic research, and you start from a problem standpoint of view, instead of just trying to get as many random keywords as possible, then the actual issues that people are dealing with become apparent, right? And in the toothbrush space, that could be, is an electric toothbrush better than a manual one, right? Or is it okay to use your partner's toothbrush, right? There's all kinds of stuff out there, but it does not always become apparent right away. And that's why I love to jot down on these problems, list them in front of me, and then try to structure my content accordingly. And I hope that answers your question.
Another great answer, Kevin. So the next question, you mentioned feature snippets and that being in the top 5 helps you get feature snippets. Can you just give us some other recommendations as to what else would help you claim those positions?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to say that I think AJ Gergerich published a great study on the SEMrush blog about this, where you find lots of great recommendations. And I'm happy to look for the link and post it into the YouTube comments or YouTube chat, better said. But to boil it down to what I learned from this, first of all, you want to be in the first 5 positions. You want to have the question and the answer explicitly on your page. You want to try, if this is, again, a featured paragraph snippet, if you will, where you have, concise sentences, you want to try to answer that within 50 to 70 words. That's like a rough estimate. And then when it comes down to lists, of course, your format has to be different. You have to have bulleted lists, whether numbered or unnumbered. Now, the thing is that in a lot of cases, there's a featured snippet because somebody else is already ranking in the featured snippet, right? So the best thing you can do in this case, if you want featured snippets, is to actually look what the content structure of the existing featured snippet looks like and what the core information is. In a lot of cases, you have something like, okay, now I gotta think of an example, but you have a question and you have an answer that starts with a part of the question, right? Like, how do you do tax savings? And then the answer is, you do tax savings by X. And then there are a couple more sentences that Google pulls. And this is your chance where you can differentiate a little bit. Maybe you put, the topic into a greater perspective, or maybe you jump into more details. Maybe you show what the subtopics are, et cetera, et cetera. So that's your chance of maybe taking the featured snippet from somebody else. And I hope that came across clearly.
Perfect. Perfect answer again. The next question is, someone's actually asking if you're in prison, because that looks like one of those American orange suits. Nah, I'm only kidding.
I'm actually in jail.
Sorry. Someone's asking here, on the tool, it gives a keyword difficulty score between 1 and 100. What figure would you consider very competitive? And also, is there a figure there that you would consider that's fairly easy to rank?
Yeah, so here's how I think about this. With most of these metrics, like backlink strength and competitiveness and keyword difficulty, they usually exist on a bell curve, right? So most of the content, most of the keywords will probably have the average keyword difficulty, something in the middle, right? It's probably something between, I don't know, 35 and 75, right? So I assume that the amount of keywords with a very high keyword difficulty is much lower than those with, for example, below 80 or 75. And so it of course depends on how strong your own domain is and how relevant your domain is for the specific keyword, right? For me, this helps me to understand, are there strong other sites ranking for that keyword? And are there lots of results, right? Is this kind of a newcomer keyword that might gain a lot more search volume in the future? Or is it something that has been, that's evergreen for ages, right? So this is how I think about keyword difficulty and competitiveness in general. And then again, it depends on where I stand. An easy way to understand for yourself if the keyword difficulty is high or not, or if it's attainable or not, is to look at the keywords you rank for in the top 3 and then look what keyword difficulties they have. And then you can go back and say, okay, this is a new keyword I want to rank for. It has a high keyword difficulty, but I think I can do this. It's relevant for my space or product. And then I think you can put that metric a bit easier into context than just looking at the sheer number and then saying, okay, 80 is manageable and 20 is definitely easy. It always depends on where you're coming from.
Perfect. Now I'm going to be a pain in the backside here and go back to featured snippets. Ross Kumar was asking, what is the best place on a website to place these questions for featured snippets?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is definitely not on an FAQ page. I think, so this is something that I learned personally. Having one single page where you collect all the questions and answers usually doesn't work. And that is, and I make assumptions here, that is probably because an FAQ page is too broad in its topical focus. So you want to have the feature, you want to try to rank for featured snippets on the page that is the most relevant for it, and that's usually some article. It's usually not a landing page. I don't think I've ever seen that, but it's usually some sort of blog article format. And on the page itself, it usually doesn't matter much where you answer the question as long as it is in the main content, right? So obviously some site navigation. I don't think anybody would ever do that, right? But I just want to point out here, main content is important. And then after my experience, it doesn't matter much if it's at the bottom or at the top. I don't think there's a kind of above the fold bonus for featured snippets. And again, this is my experience, and this is how I understand this. Maybe there's somebody from Google watching and thinking, ha, it's actually so wrong. We do give a higher bonus for above the fold featured snippets. But again, I don't think so. I haven't made that experience. So it shouldn't matter as much as addressing that question explicitly.
Perfect. Hopefully that answers your question. So the next question would be, when you're selecting keywords for an organic campaign using the Keyword Magic tool, if you also had some budget for paid search, would you just use the exact same keywords, or do you do something different?
Yeah, so I would use most of the keywords. I would shy away a little bit from bidding on keywords where I am ranking the featured snippet for, because usually those attract so much attention that they have a negative impact on the click-through rate of PPC campaigns or of AdWords. Now, that being said, I think that there are different user intents, and Google shows search results and search features accordingly. So if in your keyword research, you have a couple of middle of the funnel or transactional keywords, right, where you look for something like, I don't know, Jira versus Asana, or product comparisons, or buy Jira, or those kind of keywords that hint at a transactional intent. For those, it makes a lot of sense to bid on in PPC, and if those should be part of your keyword research, right? So that's where I see the overlap of using those keywords also for PPC. But again, if it is a long-taily question that shows a featured snippet, I would probably not bid on it in PPC. Again, you have to use a bit of common sense. If your competitors are bidding heavily on that keyword, then you might want to jump in. But just simply compare the click-through rates for your PPC campaigns on keywords that show a featured snippet and those that don't. So yeah, that's how to go about that.
Perfect. And going back to featured snippets, Ross Kumar is asking, and I hate doing this to put you in the spot, but he's asking, have you got an example of someone who has a good featured snippet? Is there something you could maybe drop in the YouTube chat for Ross to have a look at?
Yeah, you mean, well, let's see, actually. Let's do this live. We're doing it live. The issue is a little bit that Google keeps fluctuating with those featured snippet. I'd have to come back to you on this one because a couple of those that I was looking for are not existent anymore.
Or what?
Usually,
I can tell Ross to catch you on Twitter or something like that, because I think Anton put your Twitter ID up there. So Ross, if you want to maybe give Kevin a shout out later on, you could maybe kindly send over an example at that point on Twitter or whatever, if that's cool.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, there are a couple of others from the examples that I used earlier. Like, there's one for how long to save tax returns, which is actually a good question. And the IRS ranks in the featured snippet here. And the quick answer is 3 years, right? It's apparently super straightforward, apparently relatively black and white. And if you have a government institution like the IRS ranking the featured snippet, then I think your chances of taking that over are relatively low. But just go through a couple of questions regarding your regarding the keyword that you're researching for, and you'll easily find a couple of featured snippets. So in the example that I showed before, there were a couple of questions, even something like how much will I save with the new tax plan? And then, yeah, you'll find lots of featured snippets. And again, it is mostly something that you address with content on your page, much less or probably no effect from something like structured data, schema org, and even with backlinks, I don't think those have a huge impact. However, of course, you have to rank highly in the first place to be, to be eligible for featured snippets.
Perfect. So the next question, I'm not sure if this is actually relating to featured snippets or just a general question from Eldon Loco. How many keywords do you recommend targeting per page maximum? I'm not sure what that's. I'm assuming that's just relating to generic search.
Yeah, that's how I would understand the question. So my experience is that a single page can rank for thousands of keywords. And once again, it really depends on what your basis is and what your domain is. If you're somebody like Airbnb, for example, with obviously a huge domain power, then it is fairly easy for you to set up a single page that ranks for thousands of keywords. I just come to that example because I've used it in the past. And I know that Airbnb created a whole lot of pages for queries like things to do in San Francisco or things to do in city, whatever. And those rank for thousands of keywords. Now, again, if you just started a young site and it's maybe a year old, it's a little blog or something like that, you will probably be much more on the end of 10 to 20 keywords. If a page ranks for 50 to 100, I think that's, if a blog article ranks for that many keywords, I think that's already pretty good. And then it, of course, depends on how much search volume these keywords have and how much relevant traffic comes across at these. So that's how I think about that. Craig, what would you say?
I would agree with yourself. I'm not. We all. There's only so many. You can look at different tools and stuff like that. And I've got pages that rank for 59 keywords or whatever it may be. So it's one of those questions. There isn't a specific number you can put on it. I put articles out there and only specifically really went for 2 or 3 keywords, but I've not really thought about the long tail stuff or whatever. And yeah, it's not something I go out with a specific figure in mind. I just see what happens. And obviously I go back to articles as well and, add to them and tweak them and stuff like that. And again, more keywords can come in. But obviously that leads me on to the next question very well, actually, where, give me a second just to get it up again. It was Annie Tandy who was saying, is it recommended to use each keyword as a heading in the article, or can they just be included in the copy? So obviously, as far as I'm concerned, just including it in the copy can sometimes rank you well. As a matter of principle, I do use headers, but the question's for you, Kevin, so I'll let you answer it.
No, I'm happy you join in on this one. I very much agree with you. I think it's the most important is in the copy. And again, Google has become really good in understanding the topical relevance of content. And to meaning basically how relevant is this specific article or landing page for a specific topic. And within that topic, there are several variations of the query. Right? So I just mentioned Airbnb and the things to do in city pages. So for example, as soon as Google has understood, hey, this is actually the most relevant and best page for people who want to know what they can do in a specific cities, it will rank this page for lots of different variations of the query. And for that, it is not necessary to have all these variations in different headings. It definitely helps to look at the user intent, right? To think about what are people actually trying to achieve when they get to my page, and then give them the best user experience possible. And user experience is oftentimes written text and content, right? But it can also be a map, or it can be a list or something in those regards. And then it becomes not that important to have specific keywords and headings, even though I generally try to do that, but only when it looks natural and only when it makes sense. So it's not a prerequisite anymore.
Yeah, I think the key part there is keeping it looking natural and not, just spamming these keywords in all of your headings. But yeah, so another great question. So we've got a fair few more questions. We've still got 11 minutes to go. So L4 group is asking, at what point do you identify a topic as being too broad for a single page?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And to me, so usually when I try to, for example, rank in a specific topic space, like the tax savings examples that I gave earlier with this startup, then I first do the whole research, and then I structure those keywords and those queries into specific pages. Now, there's always going to be one page that is a high-level overview, right? A hub page or a pillar page, and that is always going to be the basis. And then it is really about figuring out these subtopics. And within subtopics, there could be smaller topics as well, right? So we talked about tax savings plans. Again, maybe that could be for, there's a different relevance for people who retire and people who go to college. And this is how I look at these things, right? I decide it is too broad for a page when I personally understand that that it targets too many different user groups and too many different intents. I want one page for one type of people. It could be two as well, right? But not 5 different user groups. And when the user intent is clear, right? So when people want to learn something, that's fine. When they want to buy or transact something, that's a different user intent, so it has to be a different page. So there are a couple of factors that I use to kind of segment the keywords that I found in the keyword research, and then I decide when a topic is too broad for a page. But to be fair, this is something that is really hard to just do with sheer numbers. You have to have you have to immerse yourself a little bit in the topic space and understand it to a degree to be able to say, okay, this topic deserves its own page and this one can actually be clustered with another one.
Perfect answer. So Ross Kumar is still firing away with questions, so we'll go with another one of Ross's next. What should be the ideal content length for writing content for service and local service area pages? Is there a specific number that you use?
Yes, and again, Craig, after I give an answer, I'm also very curious to hear what you would say. For my part, I always look at the top 10 results and see how long their content is, and then I try to be slightly longer, and not because the keyword length, or sorry, the content length is actually important, but it is much more likely to cover relevant subtopics when the content is longer. Granted, you don't have a lot of fluff in your content, right? If you just try to make it longer for length's sake, then this is not the right way to go about it. But generally, I look at the best performing results. I look at how long their content is, and then I try to see if I can add more depth and more substance to it. But there's, of course, not this broad number that you can give across every industry or across, like this magic number.
I mean, personally speaking, you hear figures, people saying you have to do long form content. It's got to be 2,000 words. And you hear other people saying, nah, 500's enough. I'm a bit like yourself, where I don't actually have a specific figure in my head. What I tend to do, and it's probably, and I don't even know if I should tell people this, but when I write a blog post, what I tend to do is I'll record a video for it at the start. So I'll talk about what or if it's a video tutorial, I'll record it, and what I do is I get it transcribed. And obviously my videos are normally like between 5 and 10 minutes long, so they're always going to be probably 1,500 to 2,000 words long anyway. But I think what you're saying, Kevin, is obviously you've got more, you can get more subheadings, more keywords in there, based on different, the longer the content is. So I'm a huge fan of, I think that long form content does work to a certain degree, but I know people don't always want to read hordes and hordes of text. So to capture both, I always do that video thing, and that's the way I do it. So I'd certainly, I don't have a figure. If I don't hit the 2,000 mark or whatever it may be, I don't care, as long as I've covered off the points that I'm trying to get across. And whether that's a tutorial on the keyword magic tool or anything else, then if it's only 750 words, so be it. If I've said everything I need to say, I'm not too worried about it. So That would be my input from that. But Ross has one other question. It says they're doing well compared to their competitors in terms of backlinks, traffic, citations, but they're still not ranking at the top. What should they do? Is there any suggestions? It's very, very vague question, but let's see what you've got to say on that.
That is a very broad question. But let me try to give you a couple of helpful tips here. So one thing that I spent more time doing in the last 12 months maybe is when I don't rank well for a keyword, is to really look at the competitors, but not only in terms of content and backlinks, but also in terms of user experience and internal linking. So user experience, I look at how are their pages designed and layouted. Is it something like the font size, something very simple, right? Anything that could contribute to making it as comfortable and easy for people to consume the content, right? Sometimes it's factors like that. Sometimes the design of a site is very outdated and just looks a bit spammy, and that is enough reason for people not to click on it or not to return or to bounce right off. And then internal linking, I think, has become a really strong lever. It always has been, but it is one of the few levers that we can still control to 100%. And a lot of people underestimate that. So if you have a larger site, then the larger a site, the more important internal linking becomes. And the more I would, set up a crawl. You can even do that with SEMrush, recurring crawls, look at the technical errors, but also look at how interlinked the page is that you want to rank for a specific keyword. And then see, if maybe you can add an internal link from a very, a page that gets lots of backlinks to that specific page, and see if that maybe moves the needle. I made lots of good experiences with internal linking, so these two, user experience and internal linking, are what I want to give you as advice.
Great advice. I think a lot of people are under the impression it's just backlinks and stuff, but what I would also add to that, on top of what Kevin's saying, is things like click-through rate is a ranking factor. And if that person up the top's getting loads of clicks and you're not, and you've got similar backlinks and all that kind of stuff, that can be the part that obviously keeps them up there as well. But obviously you can get massively quick wins out of good internal linking and all these other kind of things. And again, site speed, your site might be slower than theirs. You've got to fine-tune everything and beat these guys. But certainly, as long as you're up there or thereabouts, then it's just those fine tweaks. So that would be it's not always about backlinks or citations or traffic to your website. There are underlying issues, and site speed's a ranking factor, click-through rate's a ranking factor, internal linking, all of these kind of good things go some way to helping you maybe get that step above your competition. Another question, we'll try and get another question or two in. Because we've got 2 minutes left. The BlackBerry Center, they're basically asking, will you do an example with the keywords dual diagnosis? I'm not sure, an example of keyword magic tool, or I'm not sure what that means. So we'll come back to that one. Just Anton's put that in the chat. If you can tell us what you mean by an example, is it the keyword magic tool example, or what do you want us to do with dual diagnosis? We'll come back to that one. So we have My Florida Coastal Team. They're asking, video is so important at this point. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions on leveraging video?
Yes, I think, well, broadly speaking, I think video is insanely important. I certainly made a huge push for video here at Lesson, and we're definitely ramping up our efforts. I think it is, to relate back to the topic of this webinar, I think it is really important because some questions can be very well addressed with a video. And that could be a webinar like this, like how do you, how to use the keyword magic tool, right? Or how do you find featured snippet opportunities or whatever. Then this webinar would be a great answer to that. And then sometimes just showing people hands-on is easier than writing something down, right? Say you want to, I don't know, fix your sink or something, then a 30-second video is much, much easier, and first of all, easier to understand, faster to consume, and a better result than writing a 1,000-page article. So that's my stance on video.
Oops, sorry, my mouse wasn't working there. But No, that's another good answer, Kevin, and that probably is the final question. We didn't actually get the feedback back from the BlackBerry Centre on the dual diagnosis, but if you want to maybe shoot me up or Kevin up or whatever, hopefully we can answer that for you. But thanks again, everyone, for watching. Thanks to everyone who put your questions in. Thank you, Kevin, for being my first guest. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for everyone watching SEMrush throughout the year anyway, and hopefully you all have a great Christmas and all the best for 2019 from myself, SEMrush, I'm sure Kevin as well, and we will see you next year.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Cheers.